Is magic real? Do I have to believe in magic in order for my spells to be effective? How does magic work? These are some questions that I'm going to answer in today's video. Hi everyone, and welcome to another video. I'm Zila from Sky Garden Tarot, where we talk about all things weird and witchy. And in today's video, I want to talk about placebo magic. For the longest time, I thought that I had invented the placebo magic paradigm, but it turns out there are other like-minded people out there. Comment below if you ever thought that you invented something, but it turned out you didn't. I was trained as a scientist, and I have worked as a scientist for a number of years. So a lot of people thought the fact that I'm a scientist is at odds with the fact that I'm a witch. So today, I'm going to go into some detail as to how a scientist can be a witch, firstly, and secondly, I'm going to give you some tips on how to make your magic as potent as possible. The lens through which I'm going to explain this to you is going to be through the placebo magic paradigm. I want to add a disclaimer here that if you do not subscribe to this paradigm, I am not saying that this is the only possible way to look at magic. This is just one way that has been very helpful for me as a scientist. The placebo magic paradigm is characterized by the belief that all magic and magical acts work as a placebo. For me, this is actually a really powerful belief. It is not meant to demean or undermine the concept of magic at all, but rather I think that the concept of magic as a placebo legitimizes magic to a huge extent, and that's what I'm going to discuss today. The placebo is an inert substance with no therapeutic value, meaning that there's no medical or scientific reason for a placebo to work. The key characteristic of a placebo is that it does work, and it's thought to work through psychological means. So an example of a placebo would be taking a sugar pill to cure your headache. There's no reason why a sugar pill would cure your headache, but scientific research shows that it does. The whole medical industry is founded upon the belief of the placebo. That means that every single new drug that is released has to be proven to be more effective than a placebo. If we can just pause right there and digest that, because I think that is truly amazing. Medicines have to be proven to work better than a placebo, but the fact that a placebo works is really important and powerful information that we can apply in our lives, and that is exactly what I do with my craft. So there's really no question as to whether or not a placebo is effective or not. By definition, a placebo is effective. And there is no need then to worry about, is magic real? Because if we take what I think is a very conservative and skeptical approach to how magic works, and we say, oh, it's just a placebo, to me the word just doesn't really apply, because a placebo works, and that is cool AF. So the next thing that is really interesting about placebos is, yes, they work, but some placebos work better than other placebos. And there's certain things that you can do to make a placebo more effective. So one of the key findings about placebos have been the more closely they resemble a real medication, the more effective they are. Other things that have been found out about placebos is if that you take 2 pills rather than 1 pill, it's going to be more effective. In addition, if you take a capsule rather than a pill, it works better than the pills. And if you take a brightly colored capsule rather than a white capsule, it works better than a white capsule. If you have an injection rather than a capsule, it works even better. And if you have your injection in a hospital setting, then it works even better. Something else that is pretty interesting about a placebo is that the colors, say, of the pills or the capsules that you're taking have actually been shown in scientific research to have an effect or different effects based on the color. So for example, one study found that if you were to take a blue or green colored capsule, then it has a tranquilizing effect, whereas if you were going to take a yellow or orange or red capsule, it actually has a more stimulating effect. However, there was so much variability around the findings of what colors have what effects that led the authors to believe that the effect that a certain color of placebo has on the individual depends completely on what that individual believes that color represents to them. So from there we can see that there is a lot of range in how effective a placebo can be. And the general theme seems to be how believable the placebo is to you who's taking that placebo. So in order to make a placebo more effective, we have to make it more convincing to us. And this is where things get interesting, because something that is convincing to you might not actually be very convincing for me. And I think this is really cool, because this is where we get to see the extent to which we can personalize our magical crafts and practices. What else is pretty cool about placebos is that they've actually been shown and demonstrated to have physiological effects. Areas that have been shown to be impacted by the placebo include heart rate, blood pressure, effects on your gastrointestinal tract, pulmonary system, as well as in immune responses. In fact, these physiological effects have been shown to be so significant that there's even been discourse in the medical field about whether or not placebos should be prescribed. And one study actually found doctors are already prescribing placebos in Germany. It's also important to know that there are some criticisms of the concept of a placebo. There are some authors who say the placebo doesn't actually exist and that it's a result of a whole number of things, including things like return to norm, meaning that your headache would have gone away anyway if you just waited enough time. So it wasn't the sugar pill that you took that cured your headache. However, I also think it's pretty interesting that these authors admit that they cannot deny the existence of psychosomatic disorders or psychosomatic effects. And one key example where this has been seen is with the medical condition of asthma. Now, I myself am asthmatic, and if I'm stressed, then my chest closes. It's as simple as that. So if I have a panic attack, you can be sure that I'm going to be having an asthma attack at the same time. And this is something that has been very widely studied. It means that my body physically changes and it becomes harder for me to breathe because of my beliefs and because of the situation that I'm in. There's no medical reason for this, but that's what happens. And that is the power of the mind over the body, as well as over your reality. So given that the placebo works and has different efficacies, and thirdly, have detectable physiological effects, I use magic as a form of placebo in order to empower myself to take action in the real world. And in terms of what kind of psychosocial context works for me as to what's going to be the best placebo for me, the so-called witchy aesthetic is the one that appeals to me. It's the one that I thrive in. It's the one that makes me fulfilled and happy and makes me feel empowered. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the witchy path is for everyone and that this is the only way to harness personal power. And that is also why I love the fact that we live in such a diverse world and that everyone has the opportunity to walk their own path. So in a way then, magic is a language, and it's a language that speaks to my soul. The Satanic Temple refers to magic as self-transformative psychodrama, meaning that by doing the act, by doing a spell or a ritual, you are transforming yourself and you are transforming your psyche, and that's how they believe that magic works. I've also heard Kellyanne Maddox, and if you don't know who that is, I will link her channel below because she has this amazing channel. But I've heard Kellyanne Maddox refer to magic as a psychological fandango, where it's some kind of a little dance that speaks to your unconscious self or your deep inner self so that you can effect change within that allows you to effect change outside of you. And I think these are really interesting ways to look at magic, and there's definitely a component of placebo to those definitions too. So nowadays, it doesn't really matter to me how magic works. I believe that it works at the very least as good as a placebo. So even if you don't believe in magic in a supernatural sense, maybe you can believe that it works as a placebo. So how then can you make your magic more potent using the placebo magic paradigm? Placebos have been described in the literature as meaningful symbols, words, actions, and settings, or elements that actively shape the patient's brain. So this means then that optimizing language, visual cues, expectations, and beliefs may increase the efficacy of placebo effects. There are a few tips that I have for you. First one is to learn to suspend your disbelief. This means that while you're doing a spell or a ritual, just for the time of the ritual, do what you can in order to believe that it's going to work. But don't stress yourself out about this, because at the end of the day, it's going to work even if you don't believe it. That's what a placebo does. So the next thing that you can do to make your magic more powerful is to make it more believable to you. So this is where the fun comes in, because you get to learn and play and experiment and see what works for you. For example, for some people, working with oils and herbs is what makes their magic absolutely potent. But for you, maybe it's working with crystals or candles, or maybe it's working with natural ingredients that you find outside. Whatever it is that works for you and makes you excited about your magic, that's what you should be doing. The other thing you can do is keep a record of your experiments. So write down how you cast a spell. Write down the things that for you really helped you feel like this was potent magic that you were doing. Don't be afraid to try new things. Look for inspiration around you. You can find inspiration in the way other people do their magic, in the way other traditions do their magic. You can also get inspired by spiritual teachers who speak your psychosocial language as well. Read as many books and watch as many videos as possible. There are so many fun things happening on social media at the moment as well. Just try to surround yourself with inspiration so that you can keep your craft fresh and interesting for you. And finally, one of the coolest things, in my opinion, about placebo magic is the concept of humility. If we are applying the placebo magic paradigm, then it just means inbuilt that something that works for you may not work for me, and so forth. And this means that there should never be any spiritual gatekeeping, meaning that no one should ever be telling someone else how to do their magic. Sure, we can share our experiences and try to inspire people, but there's room in this world for each and every one of us. So let's learn to celebrate each other and celebrate all the different paths and approaches that we have, because there's room for all of us weird and witchy creatures. So to answer a few of the questions that were at the beginning of this video, I don't believe that you have to believe in magic in order for it to work. I do believe that magic is real. It's at least as real as a placebo, and as a minimum requirement, at least as well as a placebo, it works. And how does magic work? Well, that's up to you. For me, believing that magic works as a placebo is one of many useful ways to look at magic, but there are many more. So comment below, let me know, how do you believe magic works? Do you believe in magic? What do you think of the placebo magic paradigm? How do you make your magic more believable to you? Because I would love to hear all of your ideas. If you got this far in the video, please leave a like, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a video from me. Thank you for watching.